and welcome to REMIC TV. I'm Jasmine Bowen and you are watching What's Going On, and we have a very special, very smart guest in our studio today. But before we get to him, I want to remind you guys about our contest. You see that contest banner, win $500, win $10,000? Well, it's just as simple as telling all your friends about the great stuff you watch on REMIC TV. All the great videos that you watch. I know you're telling your friends, hey, I saw this great episode yesterday. Why not get paid to do it? Enter your friends' information, tell them about the great videos, and there you go. Every friend is another chance to win $500 just for telling them what you did yesterday. Anyway, now that you've entered the contest, settle down and let's welcome Randy into our studio. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you very much for being on the show. So tell me, what do you do?
What I do? Well, I'm a real estate consultant. So my licenses are, I'm a real estate broker. Okay. I'm a mortgage broker. I'm an appraiser, and yeah, I help people with their real estate. So
you do a lot under that small heading. So tell me, what's your main focus right now?
My main focus has to do with investing in real estate.
Okay, investing. So buying properties. Now, do you focus on buying properties for people to rent out, or buying properties for people to own, or?
Yeah, so maybe I should explain that a bit further. So when I say investment real estate, most people take a look at their home and think of it as an investment. But what I'm talking about is the property outside of your home. So obviously being able to manage our wealth, managing our own home and the equity in that home matters, but then being able to multiply that money in other properties.
Really? Can you clarify on how we can multiply our money? I'm sure everyone's ears perked up right there.
Absolutely, because my job is all about creating the highest ROI. So what I'm looking for is, as a wealth creator in real estate, is I'm going to be doing for my clients what I do for myself. Okay. So there are many ways to create wealth in real estate. One of the easiest ways is to come up with your own equity in buying it. Okay. It's a very simple thing. You hire an agent, you find a property, you put your down payment, and you get a mortgage. You'll find that really interesting investors that have managed to create a lot of wealth in real estate is they create their equity, they create their deals. And I was talking with someone about this earlier, where he's a banker. Okay. And he's a young banker, and he said, Randy, I'm saving hard for my down payment to buy my second property. I said, well, that's great. I don't know how long that's going to take you. You know, you're a young guy with a baby. You've got to save maybe $500 a year, $600 a year. It may take you 5-6 years to actually save that. Have you thought about the increases in prices by the time you actually save it, how much more you have to save?
Inflation, it gets you.
And then I said, you're a smart guy, you're a banker, you're able to get me fantastic results as a banker with me here in the bank. How about I give you some advice, and I tell you what I did to create what I bought. And what I did was I created my equities. Okay. I found the deals with the instant equities, I structured the deals, and I got the financing where I created my wealth, where I made my money going into every single deal.
All right, now how did you get started in this whole business? I mean,
That's
did you just wake up one day and decide I'm going to make money this way?
That is my favorite question, because it's interesting, because I was the anti-real estate investor. I grew up in a triplex, painting apartments and dealing with smoking tenants and hating them. And I grew up watching real estate investors in my family having to deal with really bad tenants and being stressed out. And
so this is already kind of a family deal.
I grew up seeing this as a young person. I grew up seeing a lot of other people suffering with their tenants. So I said, you know what, I was going to get out of my own rat race by being a corporate guy. Okay. Because there was no one in my family that I saw that had a suit and tie that went to work every day. Okay. Being a first-generation Canadian, my parents coming from the Caribbean, they worked really hard with very little in their pocket to get what they had, and they didn't have the big corporate job. So I thought that was the way out. So I studied really hard to become a chartered accountant. I articled with a company called Arthur Anderson, and they got caught in a somewhat of a big scandal back in 99-2000 called Enron, which I don't know if you heard about that stock scandal. It was the biggest stock scandal at that time. So for myself, it was a bit of a wake-up call, because I had been trained and thought I can create wealth in the stock market. Right. I thought if I analyze a company's stock portfolio, their assets, their liabilities, their income statements, I could pick the right companies to invest in. But
so essentially, you trained at a place that went down the drain, and everything you learned was not necessarily
Well,
big.
at that time, I thought, you know what, the stock market is the way to create wealth for me. And if I understood it and mastered it as a chartered accountant, I could create wealth with that.
Right.
But then when I lost my job with Arthur Andersen because there was this fraud that happened with the auditor, I lost complete confidence in what was called a balance sheet. Because then I really learned who are the people that are checking these balance sheets, where are they getting these actual numbers, do I really know what I'm investing in, do I have control to understand what I'm putting my money in. And that's when I went back to basics. So I got my real estate license in 2000, and I went back to basics because I knew real estate was a wealth creator. If you take a look at the wealthiest people in most countries, they hold the majority of their wealth in real estate.
No, and this is true, and this actually goes historically a long way back. The nobility in Europe, a lot of the time, they didn't work, but they owned land all the time, and that was their job. So this is a very historical way of creating wealth.
It's very interesting that you brought that up, because as you mentioned that, it actually rings a chord inside me, and one of the reasons why I must own real estate is that what you may not know is that the West Indians that were taken from India to populate the Caribbean islands during the British colonization of the islands, they were brought over as indentured laborers into the Caribbean, so almost like slaves. So that was my generation about 150 years ago from India into the Caribbean, and they were promised to go back home, but when the British couldn't do that, they gave them land. And my family were the lucky indentured laborers in the Caribbean to be given land. So that was the way that they had their wealth. So for me, it's an intrinsic thing that I need to own something. I need to own the real estate. That probably came from my father, my mother, and so on. But
so
I just
it's
have
in
that
your blood. You need to.
It is. It's in my blood.
Well, I mean, that's certainly a good way about being passionate about something, not knowing necessarily why, but knowing you have to do it. So we were talking a little bit before the show about the fact that anyone should invest, whether they're a student or whether they've saved up for 30 years. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that. That's
a really interesting point. So who should invest in real estate? To tell you the truth, I think being a Canadian, you've got a God-given right. You've got a right in the Constitution, in our Charter of Rights, to own land, and that's one of the proud things that I believe my parents suffered for me to enjoy being a Canadian, is I have the right to own land, and anyone else does. So for me, I think it's a very proud right, and I think everyone should. Now, being a student, obviously, right now, unless you've got the cash to go buy cash, being able to qualify for a mortgage may be a bit of a challenge. The banks have underwriting criteria that requires down payment, employment, excellent credit, those types of things. So that could be a challenge for a student, but basically anyone that is working for 2 years in a continuous industry should be able to qualify for a mortgage with enough down payment, good enough credit.
All right.
And yeah, I think ownership is a fantastic thing. I hope that answered your question. Is there anything else that I missed there?
No, it does. Everyone, you know, to a point. Now, most students are working, hopefully in a steady industry. But would you recommend that as a student they start investing right away?
You know, that is a fantastic question. Because being a young, aggressive guy, when I was going to school, I thought, wow, I just own something. When I was in school, I was focused in on my studying. So I did what I did best, which was studying. I got the grades, and I got the great job.
Right.
And so I guess to answer your question to the point, do what you need to do at that time so you can maximize your energies. Owning real estate takes a focused energy. And if you're working on another project, for example, if you're a student living in a small town and you're going to be in that town for 4 years, do you really want to spend your time managing tenants and managing a property rather than focusing your energies on the toughest program you've ever been on for about 4 years, right?
Right.
So it has to be at the right time. And sometimes owning is not the best thing, which is why in our great country we've got tenants which help to pay our mortgages as landlords. So being a tenant is a great gift that you're giving a landlord, and it's for them at the right time.
Absolutely. Have you had any issues that stand out in your mind as something that you mentioned it was in your blood to own, but is there anything that puts you off of it?
That puts me off of ownership in real estate?
I mean, there's a good side, but is there a
You know,
side?
you know what? It's an interesting question, because I was interviewed by Rubina at Condo Life magazine She was doing an article about the condominium industry based on my book, Investing in Condominiums. She was asking a question, which is, what are some of the myths that people believe about condo ownership and owning that as an asset class? And what are some of the things that stop them from owning? And I thought about it, and for example, one of the things that should keep you from owning an investment property is if you're not a people person. You don't like dealing with people. I honestly believe that the real estate business is less about the bricks and more about the blood.
Interesting.
Yeah, I actually like that line. It's less about the bricks and more about the blood. Now, for me, my business, it's all about the people. That's what makes it deals.
The people that you're working with, or your tenants, or
absolutely,
all of them?
Absolutely. I enjoy all my daily interactions with my tenants, my property managers, my clients, my lenders, and I enjoy that. I also realize that that's what drives my business.
Absolutely. I mean, without them, you would be nowhere.
Absolutely, which leads on to the next point is to be a great real estate investor is not only understanding the bricks and mortar of it, but also understanding the people.
No, why don't you elaborate on that? Because a lot of people go into this business just looking to multiply their income and looking to make more and more money, own more and more properties, you know, have the most. But tell me why it's about the people.
You know what? I'm really glad that you brought that up. Because one thing I don't want to be is I don't want to be 65 years old with $50 million in real estate, with a family that hates me and no one to hang out with.
I don't think anybody wants that.
Well, you'd be quite surprised when you're going out there in the real world and you're dealing with people that are very focused on just the money.
No, it's true.
And they forget what the money was for. So for me, building wealth in real estate is so that I can have more of what I love. And more of what I love is spending time with my two beautiful girls and my beautiful wife, hanging out with my friends and seeing them achieve and do great things.
So you don't think that people should go into this business necessarily just to have the most or more, or
more money or more people?
More money.
You know, I think money's phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. I believe money affords freedom.
It does.
Yes. Money gives you so many options, and I tell people this: I'd rather be rich and happy than poor and happy. I'd rather be rich and happy than poor and happy.
Fair enough.
I'd rather be on the islands in the Caribbean or flying around and happy.
But I noticed that happy is a point in both those statements, though. You have to be happy first.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the happy part is, are you satisfied doing what you do?
Yes.
And you know, there are some people that real estate just doesn't make sense for them. I quite honestly don't know who they are because I believe in real estate so much, and I don't hang around those kinds of people. But yeah, I think being happy is really key. Real estate is part of that mix. It's about, but for me, when I buy a property and put my tenants in it, I feel proud that I provided a safe place for my tenants. I've got tenants that trust me. They're my clients. They respect me. They need me to be attentive to their needs. Or I've got my property managers there. I'm providing a safe and warm place for them. I'm also contributing. So for any of those landlords out there that are providing affordable housing to either seniors or young people, which I do. I've got a lot of tenants that are seniors. I'm very proud of the fact that they live in very safe, affordable housing they couldn't get anywhere else. So I have some condos in smaller towns, and that's one of the major real estate investing trends right now. Is Penturbia was a book that was published by a professor out of the U.S. where he talked about individuals moving to smaller towns for lifestyle reasons. So in Ontario right now, farming communities, the kids have left the home, the parents are still in this old, decrepit farm. The farms are now dying off. As you know, we're no longer a farming community in Ontario. We're shifting from a manufacturing community to more of an intellectual community, which is why the city is booming right now.
Yes.
We're becoming a very interesting area of that kind of wealth. So these senior people are actually choosing to go and stay in condominiums and in smaller homes. So I provide that kind of affordable housing for them, and I feel proud about that.
Well, it certainly sounds like you're giving back to the community, which is great whenever a business comes in.
You hit on what I love. It's all about giving back to the community. We
will be right back with Randy, a real estate investor with a heart. Make sure to click on our contest banner, enter that contest to win $500. But for now, go refill your cup of coffee, fluff your pillows, and come right back to REMIC TV.